measures and 2 postal naming bills. I note the presence of a quorum. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Portman and his staff for working with us on this markup to advance some critical legislation. We're also considering the nominations of Ernst to be member of the Federal Labor Relations Authority, Susan T. Gundman to be the member of the Federal Labor Relations Authority, and Kurt Rumsfeld to be General Counsel of the Federal Labor Relations Authority. I'll be very brief, but these are 3 extraordinarily qualified nominees who are ready for these very vital roles, and I hope that my colleagues will join me in advancing these nominations here today. Before we proceed to the consideration of nominations, I'll recognize Ranking Member Portman, but I ask that other members who wish to make statements to do so after we vote on these nominations and the legislation before us. We have an aggressive schedule, and I know everybody also has an aggressive schedule, so we'll try to balance both of those to move this quickly. Senator Portman, you're recognized for your remarks.
Well, thank you. And so, Mr. Chairman, I will be aggressive in my opening remarks and therefore quick. We've got a lot of bills to work through, and we've got some differences, and I look forward to some of the debate and discussion. I will say that I thank the chair for working with us to hold both a hearing and actually, I thought, a very helpful, productive member meeting on the subject of the Inspectors General. Remember, that was going to be marked up without that, and I think we made some good progress by taking our time and getting that right. There still are some amendments today, by the way, with regard to that legislation, so we're going to work through those in the next hour, I hope. Of all the members of the committee who attended the briefing last week would probably agree with me that we need some help on the parolee issue, that the vetting of Afghan evacuees was woefully inadequate, and I am going to be offering an amendment for the DHS-IG to work with other relevant IGs to examine this issue. We've had our staff examine it on a bipartisan basis, and we know there are issues here, but I think it's appropriate to get the IGs more involved and to get a report as soon as possible. Also on the Federal Labor Relations Authority nominees, we're going to have some differences on that, which we'll talk about when we get into those nominations. So, again, thank you, Chairman Peters. Look forward to a spirited discussion today and getting some legislation moved.
I understand that members have asked for roll calls on the all 3 nominees. Our first nominee we will now consider is the nomination of Ernst Bester to be member of the Federal Labor Relations Authority. The question is on whether to favorably report Mr. DeBester's nomination. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Rosa. Aye. Senator Portman.
No.
Senator Johnson.
No.
Senator Paul.
No by proxy.
Senator Langford.
No by proxy.
Senator Romney.
No.
Senator Scott.
No.
Senator Hawley. No. Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 5. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 1, the nays are 2. On this vote, the yeas are 6, the nays are 5, and the motion to report the nominee is agreed to.
The nomination is favorably reported to the Senate. We'll now consider the nomination of Susan T. Grundman to be a member of the Federal Labor Relations Authority. The question is on whether to favorably report Ms. Grundman's nomination. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Rosa. Aye. Senator Portman.
No.
Senator Johnson.
No.
Senator Paul.
No by proxy.
Senator Langford.
No by proxy.
Senator Romney. No. Senator Scott. No. Senator Hawley. No. Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 5. On the vote by proxy and for the record only, the yeas are 1, the nays are 2. On this vote, the yeas are 6, the nays are 5, and the motion to report the nominee is agreed to.
The nomination is favorably reported to the Senate.
Mr. Chairman,
We will now.
could I be acknowledged for a brief comment on these nominations?
Absolutely.
So we just had a vote on these nominations for the Federal Labor Relations Authority, and our dais, the Republican side, voted no. I want to explain that. Number one, speaking for myself, we have some concerns about Mr. DeBester's current role as chair, and when you look at the data, his office ranks consistently as the least productive office in the agency. So there are some concerns there as he is seeking an additional term as chair. I think ought to be discussed. But second, we believe that because there's a forum now, and there would be a quorum of members until July of next year, which is when the Republican nominee becomes, when that becomes open, we would like to see this done in a bipartisan way as we've traditionally done it in the past, where you have Republicans and Democrats nominated. So anyway, I wanted to explain that, and understanding that the nominees, it appears, were successfully reported out at the committee today.
Thank you, Ranking Member Portman. We'll now consider the nomination of Kurt Rumsfeld to be General Counsel of the Federal Labor Relations Authority. The question is on whether to favorably report Mr. Rumsfeld nomination. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Ossoff. Aye. Senator Portman.
No.
Senator Johnson. No. Senator Paul.
No by proxy.
Senator Langford.
No by proxy.
Senator Romney. No. Senator Scott. No. Senator Hawley. No. Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 5. On the vote by proxy and for the record only, the yeas are 1, the nays are 2. On this vote, the yeas are 6, the nays are 5, and the motion to report the nominee is agreed to.
The nomination is favorably reported to the Senate. We'll now proceed to the consideration of H.R. 2662. I ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Peters-Portman substitute amendment as twice modified as the underlying bill. It was modified again this morning to accept a negotiated version of an amendment by Senator Paul. And I want to certainly thank Ranking Member Portman for working with me on this substitute amendment for this bill. This bipartisan bill includes a slate of reforms to ensure that inspectors general across government are able to fulfill their important oversight role with both integrity and independence. IG independence is critical, and we can't afford to see these important oversight offices politicized. This bill will prevent harmful politicization by giving IGs the necessary tools to carry out their work and by ensuring that Congress has the information it needs to conduct oversight of IG operations. We have also worked to address concerns by incorporating amendments from Senator Johnson, Senator Langford, Senator Paul, and Senator Scott into this bill, and I would urge my colleagues to support the substitute and the underlying bill. Ranking Member Portman?
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, again, we've already had a meeting of our group, and we've also had a hearing on this topic in the last couple of weeks, and I thought those were very helpful and, again, productive in making some changes to it. And I appreciate all the work by members on both sides of the aisle here in coming up with a bill that truly does help ensure IG independence. I just want to mention one issue, because this bill does include a longstanding request from the IG community for testimonial subpoena power. And I think it's an important tool that the IGs need. You don't want people to be leaving in order to avoid an investigation. But it's a serious responsibility, and I think it requires responsible guardrails. So among the safeguards, it does include in this bill now an Attorney General review, a subpoena panel to approve subpoena requests, and a 5-year sunset clause, as we talked about in the hearing, so we can examine the use and effectiveness of this authority. And again, I want to thank my colleagues for helping us to get what I think is a good balance there. In addition to ensuring independence, it also addresses other critical issues, such as incentivizing the President to fill these IG vacancies we have now and improving the oversight of IGs themselves. So we absolutely need to ensure independence, bolster their authorities. We also need insight into the problems in the IG offices. This bill does that, for example, regarding reports to Congress when it becomes aware a particularly serious problem is occurring at an IG office, so from SIGI. So anyway, thanks my colleagues for helping to put together a strong bill. Hope we can pass this out of the committee today and get it to the floor as soon as possible.
Thank you, Senator Portman. Hearing no objection to the unanimous consent request, the Peters-Portman substitute is adopted. Do any members have an amendment they wish to offer? Senator Scott.
I have an amendment, Scott Amendment 2 would require the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security to investigate the vetting and processing of migrants apprehended along the southern border and ensure that all laws are being upheld.
I would like to offer a second degree amendment to the Scott Amendment number 2. And first off, I want to first say that I certainly understand Senator Scott's concerns on information sharing related to the situation at the southern border. And I believe it's important that we remain regularly updated on the arrivals and processing of migrants. However, the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security would basically obtain all of that data listed in the Scott 2 amendment from the Department of Homeland Security Office of Immigration Statistics, which already collects and reports on this information. Tasking the Office of Immigration Statistics with this report would be more efficient if we just go right to that particular part of DHS. It would certainly use taxpayer resources and more efficiently and deliver the information more expeditiously to Congress as well. In fact, in the last 3 years, the Office of Immigration Statistics engaged in a groundbreaking effort to match data across different agency systems and generate an enforcement report. The report now provides a full picture of what happens to migrants from the apprehension at the southern border through adjudication and any enforcement actions that follow. My second-degree amendment to Scott 2 would simply require the Office of Immigration Statistics to report out this enforcement data more regularly, quarterly, in fact, to do it quarterly, and add other important data points that Senator Scott included in his amendment, which I agree with. This will give us a full picture of what is working and what is not working and what changes are needed at our southern border for our immigration system. So I would urge my colleagues to vote yes on the second-degree amendment, Peter's second-degree amendment. Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Ranking Member Portman.
I want to thank Senator Scott for the amendment. Look, the border crisis has been a frustration for all of us in trying to get information, and I think it's important, as we're talking about the independence of IGs, to have an independent analysis of that. So I think it's a strong amendment, and I think we should support it. I understand your interest in reaching a compromise here, and I appreciate that. But I don't think that's the right office, the Office of Immigration Statistics, to provide this data. They're already responsible for providing us the data, and they're not doing it. To be honest, we're still waiting on data from 2019 from this same office. So they have not been effective. So I don't see why they would be turned to when we have an alternative here, which is a nonpartisan independent IG office that can get us the information that we need. So, again, I appreciate your interest in trying to work something out here, but I'm going to support the amendment and vote no in the second degree.
Any other further discussion?
Yeah.
Senator Scott.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, first off, I agree with Ranking Member Portman. First off, I think we ought to have an independent investigation. We clearly know we have a crisis on the border. We've got to get better information. Your proposal is going to be, it's somebody that's going to work for the Secretary. I think it has to be independent. So I'm going to vote against the second degree amendment, and I urge all my colleagues to vote against it.
Hearing or seeing no other senator wishing to be recognized, will now proceed to the consideration of the Peters second-degree amendment to the Scott Amendment 2. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. A roll call vote has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper. Aye. Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. No. Senator Ossoff. Aye. Senator Portman.
No.
Senator Johnson.
No.
Senator Paul.
No. By proxy.
Senator Langford.
No by proxy.
Senator Romney. No. Senator Scott. No. Senator Hawley. No. Senator Peters.
Aye.
Senator Padilla wishes to be changed. Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 7, the nays are 5. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 0, the nays are 2. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 7, and the amendment is not agreed to.
The amendment, the Peters second-degree amendment to Scott Amendment number 2 is not adopted. The question before us is the Scott Amendment. And I'll just say once again, while I agree with Senator Scott's desire to obtain more information on what's occurring with migrants encountered at the southern border, I believe this amendment, at least as drafted currently, is overly onerous to the OIG and the Department and is not necessary. DHS already has an Office of Immigration Statistics that reports the items mandated in this amendment. I would urge my colleagues to vote no. Any other comment on the Scott amendment? Roll call has been requested. The clerk will read the roll.
Senator Carper. No. Senator Hassan. No. Senator Sinema. No. Senator Rosen. No. Senator Padilla. No. Senator Ossoff. Senator Portman.
Aye.
Senator Johnson. Aye. Senator Paul.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Romney. Aye. Senator Scott. Aye. Senator Hawley. Aye. Senator Peters.
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 5, the nays are 7. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 2, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 7, and the amendment is not agreed to.
The Scott amendment is not agreed to. Does any other member have an amendment they wish to offer?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call up Hawley Amendment number 1, which is MIR 21E35, which addresses the jurisdiction of the Special Inspector General for Pandemic Recovery. As my colleagues will remember, when we enacted the CARES Act, we provided unprecedented sums of money to help Americans through the pandemic, and as part of that package, we created the Special Inspector General for Pandemic Recovery, or SIGPR, to investigate the unfortunate but inevitable attempts to defraud these government programs. And at the time, many senators, including myself, believed that we'd authorize SIGPR to investigate all of Treasury's pandemic programs. However, the current administration has severely narrowed SIGPR's jurisdiction. This office hasn't received any further appropriations since its creation in 2020. I think it's important that we promote IG independence, and in this case, put some teeth back into SIGPR and its jurisdiction. Just a couple of examples of things that SIGPR, I think, should attend to. I've recently called on SIGPR and the Department of Treasury to investigate whether airlines violated the terms of their loans when they laid off employees who were refusing to submit to President Biden's vaccine mandate. In August of last year, 28 senators and myself wrote a letter to SIGPR asking that office to investigate Planned Parenthood's receipt of funds through the Paycheck Protection Programs. And it was shortly thereafter, I might note, that the Biden Department of Justice OLC, Office of Legal Counsel, issued an opinion concluding SIGPR lacked jurisdiction over that program. And then, as I said, they've declined to further fund SIGPR since then. So this amendment would make a jurisdictional fix. It would restore SIGPR's jurisdiction so they can investigate fraud of all Treasury programs. And I would just note, we've made similar jurisdictional fixes to other pandemic oversight entities, including the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee. I think it's important that we support the independence of the IGs that we have created and make sure that whatever political pressures they're facing, they are able to conduct the investigations that this body has authorized them to do. So with that, I offer this amendment, Mr. Chairman, and I ask for a vote.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. I would like to offer a second-degree amendment to Hawley Amendment number 1. Senator Hawley's amendment would appropriate funding for and expand the jurisdiction of the Special IG for pandemic response. And I think there's no question in anybody's mind here in this panel that pandemic response oversight is critically important. But we just simply haven't had the requisite time to review this particular amendment. This issue deserves serious attention. But we have to also bear in mind that there are already significant oversight processes in place now. In fact, I worked closely with Senator Johnson in creating a PRAC to oversee the response, the pandemic response, to make sure that we have full accounting for it. The IGs are engaged in that. The general GAO is involved in it. And to date, already several hundreds of reports have been released by all three of those agencies, providing information and oversight along the lines of the oversight that Senator Johnson and I worked on in the previous Congress. My amendment would basically require the GAO to conduct a review of pandemic oversight to identify any gaps in any needed funding. If there are some gaps that exist in a very extensive oversight effort right now, we need to fill those gaps, but I think we should do that based on information provided to us by the GAO, and therefore I'd urge my colleagues to join me in supporting my second-degree amendment. Is there any other discussion on the
Question, Mr. Chairman. If your second degree is support is adopted, do I understand that you're going to then vote for the underlying amendment by Mr. Hawley?
If this is
If your amendment is
this would become the amendment, yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks very much.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Ranking Member Portman.
Yeah, my understanding is it would replace the IG with the GAO report, and I support what Senator Hawley is trying to do because I think it's important that the IG have access to the information that I think we all expected they would. I think it's consistent with the original congressional intent with regard to the IG, and the pandemic recovery ought to include all the funds that were distributed under the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the Payroll Support Program, the Paycheck Protection Program. So I think that's appropriate, and the special IG is best equipped to do that. So I would support the underlying amendment and not try to nullify it by inserting the GAO into this process. GAO has its role to play as well, and I hope it will do that. But we need to have an IG that's devoted to this topic. So I would, I know, again, you're trying to find a compromise here, but I would support the underlying amendment.
Mr. Chairman, if no one,
Senator Hawley.
yeah, I want to thank you for your interest in this, Mr. Chairman. I do say I respectfully urge a no vote on your amendment. It would essentially gut my amendment. I just want to make the point here is that since Congress passed the CARES Act and created SIGPER, I just want to be clear that SIGPER was created previously. It's part of the CARES package. So we're not creating something new here. But since that time, the current administration has significantly narrowed, in a legal opinion, narrowed the jurisdiction of SIGPER and taken things out of SIGPER's jurisdiction. I think that's problematic. And again, the office hasn't received any funding since 2020. I think that's problematic. And the chairman's amendment wouldn't allow us to address either of those things. So for those reasons, I'll respectfully oppose your amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Ossoff.
would you please restate the nature of the objection to Senator Hawley's amendment?
The objection is that we already have a significant number of agencies overseeing the expenditure of these funds, including the PRAC that was put into place in the previous Congress that I worked on with Senator Johnson. We also have IGs engaged in this as it is now, as well as the GAO. There may be gaps that we have to fill, and we should fill those gaps. My amendment would task the GAO to review how all these agencies are coordinating, if they are coordinating in a responsible way and in an efficient way, and if there aren't, there would be those gaps would be filled. But we do have an awful lot of oversight. We're spending an awful lot of money on oversight, as we should. But until we know there's really a problem, right now this is the Hawley Amendment is a solution in search of a problem. We'd like to identify what is the exact problem and then deal with that problem specifically.
Thank you.
So seeing no further debate on the Peters second-degree amendment,
We have a roll call, Mr. Chairman.
roll call has been requested. The clerk will read, or will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Ossoff. Aye. Senator Portman.
No.
Senator Johnson. No. Senator Paul.
No by proxy.
Senator Langford. No. Senator Romney. No. Senator Scott. No. Senator Hawley. No. Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 7, the nays are 6. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 0, the nays are 1. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 7. The amendment is not agreed to.
The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say briefly to the sponsor of the amendment that I'd be pleased to look at this more closely as the legislation proceeds and have a chance to re-engage on it. Thank you.
And
Mr. Chairman, if I might as well.
Senator Ossoff.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman, first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I take the chairman's views seriously as this legislation's been carefully negotiated, and I know there's a plan for moving it toward final passage, so I'm going to vote with the chair on this vote, but I want to express the same sentiment that Senator Carper has, which is a desire to work with you, Senator Hawley, to ensure that the relevant IG and IGs do have all of the jurisdiction and visibility they need to conduct effective oversight.
And I'll concur, Senator Hawley. As I reached out, we chatted to try to find some middle ground here. It's not that this is not a critical issue. It is, and I appreciate your attention to it. And clearly, we want to make sure that comprehensive oversight is being conducted. So we'll continue to work closely with you, and there will certainly be other opportunities for us to move forward with this going in the future. But I would urge my colleagues to vote no on the amendment now, particularly given the fact we have, I would hope, a carefully crafted bill that we would like to get into the National Defense Authorization as well, because of the importance of what we're dealing with. So with that, a roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper? No. Senator Hassan? No. Senator Sinema? No. Senator Rosen? No. Senator Padilla? No. Senator Rosa? No. Senator Portman?
Aye.
Senator Johnson? Aye. Senator Paul?
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford? Aye. Senator Romney? Aye. Senator Scott? Aye. Senator Hawley? Aye. Senator Peters?
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 7. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 0, the nays are 1. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 7. The amendment is not agreed to.
Hawley Amendment number 1 is not adopted. Does any other member wish to offer an amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Ranking Member Portman.
We talked earlier about the briefing that we had last week regarding the Afghan parolees, and I think it's fair to say that pretty much every member of this committee was frustrated, if you were there, by the information that was provided, because much of it was publicly available information, one, but two, they were not able to answer some of the just fundamental questions, including how many people were screened, actually talked to personally, and we're still asking for a lot of that information, of course. But it's now been 2 months since the end of this evacuation, and not to know at this point what's going on with the evacuees and specifically what the national security concerns might be should be a major issue with this committee. We already know from the administration there are Afghan evacuees who pose dangerous national security threats, who somehow were able to pass through the screening process at the lily pads overseas and here to arrive on U.S. soil. We don't know how many were apprehended. We do know from media reporting that there are at least 10 evacuees who made it past the screening and into the United States prior to a national security concern being raised and causing them to be detained. In order for us to assess the dangers this operation has created for the homeland, I think it's imperative that we have an independent review by the DHS Inspector General of the screening, vetting, and processing of these evacuees prior to their resettlement. So I think this is a pretty common sense amendment. I hope my colleagues on both sides of the aisle can support it. And again, it's based on the information that we were just able to receive and information we weren't able to receive. That it's appropriate for the IG. It's not setting up a new IG. It's using the DHS Inspector General to look at this issue to ensure that we will not have additional national security issues going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ranking Member Portman. And I want to thank Ranking Member Portman for working with me on a second-degree amendment that I believe complements the work that he has done, which is critically important. So I'd like to offer a second-degree amendment to Portman Amendment number 2. Basically, oversight on the vetting and resettlement of individuals evacuated from Afghanistan is critically important, and I'm glad that the two of us have come to an agreement on the second-degree amendment. This amendment would ensure that DHS Inspector General, in coordination with the state IG and other IGs, conducts a thorough review of the Afghanistan Special Immigrant Visa Program, a more comprehensive review, as well as efforts to support and process evacuees from Afghanistan. I would urge my colleagues to support this friendly second-degree amendment to the Portman Amendment number 1.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Portman.
Thank you for working with us on this, and I do support the second degree. I view it really as just including an IG review also of the SIV program, which is the Special Immigrant Visa Program is something we also have a strong concern about because we are worried that so many individuals were left behind and that they weren't properly processed in advance or evacuated. So I think it's appropriate. This assessment will help us identify remaining challenges we have in the program's operation and improve it for our partners who are still waiting to receive their visas. So I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting the second degree as well as the underlying.
Thank you. The vote before us is on the Peters second degree amendment to Portman Amendment number 1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The second degree amendment is adopted. The vote before us now is on Portman Amendment number 1. All those in favor of the amendment will say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Senator Padilla.
I'd like to be recorded as a no.
You will be recorded as a no, and the amendment is adopted. Does any other senator have an amendment they wish to offer? Hearing none, there is no further debate or amendment. The question before us is final passage on H.R. 2662 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. All those say nay. Hearing none, the ayes have it. A majority of members present have voted in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The bill is reported favorably. We'll now proceed to consideration of S-2991, and I ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Peters-Portman substitute amendment as the underlying bill. And again, I want to thank Ranking Member Portman for working with me on this legislation. This bipartisan bill codifies the Center for Countering Human Trafficking, DHS's Operations Center for Countering Human Trafficking across components and importation of goods produced with forced labor. The Center integrates 16 DHS component agencies and offices to ensure the Department is operationally leveraging and coordinating its capabilities and resources. First established in October of 2020, the Center provides much-needed support and analysis to criminal investigators in the field and provide help to victims. I would urge my colleagues to support the bill. Does any senator wish to offer an amendment to the bill before us?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Johnson.
Yes, I'd like to offer my Johnson Amendment number 1. I think without doubt, one of the factors fueling an explosion in human trafficking is the fact that our border is completely unsecure and we have a crisis of illegal immigration. The fact that this administration's policies are facilitating the multi-billion-dollar business model of some of the most evil people on the planet, including human traffickers, is without dispute. This crisis didn't have to happen. In the previous administration, with the agreements between Mexico, countries in Central America, the Remain in Mexico policy, we had by and large stopped the flow of unaccompanied children, families exploiting our asylum laws. And we were so close to gaining operational control over the border, just so close. And the final part of that was completing barriers, which, let's face it, as we put up a double set of fencing and walls around the Capitol here, I think everybody agreed, well, that certainly helps secure the Capitol. So walls work. That would have been the final step in securing our border. So that would have been our first step in solving our broken immigration system. We could have taken care of the DACA kids. But again, because this administration completely dismantled what was working and did not complete the construction of the wall, now we have just record numbers of people coming to this country illegally, undocumented. That is going to create problems in terms of gang activity and, I mean, just all kinds of human depredation in terms of human trafficking, sex trafficking, everything else. So I understand the intent of this bill is to try and gain some control over human trafficking. The best way to do that, to reduce the flow of human trafficking, reduce the problem, is to secure our border. A key component of that is the wall. And as Senator Langford has done a great job in some of his reports, talking about the cost of just not building a wall, the wasted taxpayer dollars. It's absurd. It's insane what we've done here. So my amendment is pretty simple. If you're serious about reducing human trafficking, you need to get serious about ending the crisis of the illegal flow of illegal immigration and stop facilitating that business model of some of the most evil people on the planet, and we do that by completing the wall. So my amendment's pretty simple. It just it requires this administration to execute the laws that we passed and prohibits them from canceling or invalidating any of those contracts that the previous administration entered into to secure the border. And I urge all my colleagues to support my amendment.
Any other senator wish to comment? I will say this committee has previously considered similar amendments from Senator Johnson on this issue. Many of these border contracts were executed hastily through contracting shortcuts, disregarding objective data, environmental concerns, and private property concerns. The Biden administration must be able to terminate contracts that are irresponsible, ineffective, and unsafe uses of taxpayer money, while also completing and fixing those barriers that actually add to our country's security. Therefore, I'd urge my colleagues to vote no. Senator Portman.
Can I just add quickly? I've supported this amendment in the past, and it's very simple. When you go down to the border, as almost all of us have, I'm sure you see the gaps. They don't make any sense. You've got to have Border Patrol monitoring 24/7. The Border Patrol is very frustrated by it. But there's even a bigger issue here that I think both sides of the aisle should agree on, which is the technology. I mean, these are barrier systems, and it's a wall, but it's also monitoring, and it's not just cameras. It's also remote sensing, things that, are extremely important to getting control on the human trafficking issue, on the drug issue, and, of course, on the immigration issue. And in one sector that I visited, the wall was about 80 or 90% complete. And the gaps are frustrating because you see the metal, literally lying on the ground and some of the concrete barriers, and people have to go by them every day. It's demoralizing. But only 10% of the technology was completed. So what they shut off by shutting off the contracts was much more about technology than it was about physical borders. And again, my sense is, as a bipartisan consensus, we support technology. And that's what makes the wall so effective. So I strongly support the amendment. I think we ought to allow these contracts to go forward rather than spend taxpayer money on something that's not being done, and ensure that this technology gets in place as well. It'll make the Border Patrol job easier, but also, as they told me, it makes their job safer. I mean, they actually use this, the technology side, without getting into detail, to monitor what's going on, but also to provide kind of their backbone for communications along the border, particularly in some of these areas where there's a lot of crossings, where it's really important that they have that communication. So anyway, that's my strong view on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Romney.
May I also note that of course, any administration has the responsibility and the right to review contracts if they feel the contracts were not done properly. Of course, there are billions upon billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of contracts in the military and so forth. Those have all been just moved right along. But those things relating to completing the technology and border fence, those have been held up. The administration has been in office almost a full year. And the idea that somehow completing a border barrier is because of concern about contracts strains credulity. I believe the American people are speaking loud and clear that they want to have our border secure, and the impact on everything from drugs to human trafficking is so enormous that simply not proceeding with providing the barrier, the technology necessary, and completing the gaps in the barrier is just something I simply don't understand. The American people are crying out for this. The results of elections suggest this is a critical issue for the American people, and the disaster at the border, the crisis at the border, is overwhelming. And if we think about the human impact of human trafficking going on, and not being able to provide for our border agents the technology and the barriers that they need to protect our homeland, to protect our citizens, and protect the people who are being trafficked, it's an enormous need. It's an enormous challenge, and I simply can't understand not being willing to complete the projects that were undertaken. Some months ago, when the administration said they wanted time to review these contracts, it's like, okay, but I've reviewed contracts. It doesn't take a year to review contracts, and I don't see a lot of other contracts being reviewed. So let's get this done and move on to provide the protection that our people and other people of other nations deserve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Scott.
So I support the amendment. The border I've gone to, when I went to Arizona, they were just, the gates weren't finished, and then actually there's a lot of technology that was done. It just wasn't electrified. So it wasn't that they were reviewing contracts. It was just, are they going to turn on the electricity or not? The area that I saw, but one thing that's frustrating to me is anybody that's had to deal with human trafficking, and we all did, we all have to deal with it in our states. This is a big deal, and a lot of it comes across the southern border. But on top of that, I think all of us came up here to try to probably take care of the DACA kids and do some other things, and we can't do it. We can't do it. I mean, there's no way to get this done if we don't secure a border. And we all, in all of our states, we have a lot of young people that somebody else brought them here. We'd like to, to be helpful to them, and we can't do it because we don't have a secure border. So I think it's important that we pass this and we get a secure border, and eventually we get some immigration reform done. It's important to my state. I think it's important to all of our states.
Senator Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I recognize that I brought this amendment up in the past, not only in this committee but on the floor of the Senate. I was hoping at this moment, now that we have the report from the last years, a record flow of people coming across the border illegally, I was hoping that the members of this committee on a bipartisan basis would recognize that reality. I know Secretary Mayorkas, I realize the President of the United States are denying the reality that we have a crisis at the border, that the border is not closed. I did have in front of the Commerce Subcommittee the Commandant on the Coast Guard who said it would be disingenuous to claim that our border is closed. So at least somebody in government is recognizing the reality of the situation. Somebody within our agencies that are charged with securing the border. So again, I was hoping that members of this committee would not support the denial of reality and do, by the way, what Senator Carper did back in 2007, support securing the border. Back in 2007 when we passed the Securing the Border Act, we had more than 80 U.S. senators support securing the border. It made a lot of sense. It was a bipartisan issue. Why did securing the border become a partisan issue? It shouldn't be. We are a separate branch of government. We are the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. It is our responsibility to speak for the American public to secure the border. If this committee can't rise above partisan politics and do what the American people are demanding, secure our border, it'll be a travesty. So again, I'm just asking my colleagues, please, don't be partisan on this issue. There's nothing partisan about Homeland Security and border security. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Seeing no other senator with a comment, the question before us is the Johnson Amendment number 1. A roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
No by proxy.
Senator Hassan. No. Senator Sinema. Yes. Senator Rosen. No. Senator Padilla. No. Senator Ossoff. No. Senator Portman.
Aye.
Senator Johnson.
Aye.
Senator Paul.
Yeah, we're going to hold it.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney.
We're going to try. We'll see how.
Senator Scott.
I'm going to try to move it up.
Senator Hawley. Senator Peters.
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 6. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 1, the nays are 1. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 7, and the amendment is not agreed to.
The amendment is not agreed to. Does any other senator have an amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Langford. And Senator Langford, before you talk about your amendment, we do have votes that have been called. We're going to try to plow through this as quickly as we can. But with that, Senator Langford.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, I would hope that we were all a little surprised when there was leaked out information that came from a meeting at the White House with the Interagency Task Force on Family Reunification and White House staff and the ACLU, where apparently at that meeting there was an agreement made that there will be payments of $450,000 per person to individuals that were, quote unquote, separated at the border, individuals that had illegally crossed our border and that were now going to be paid $450,000 for that separation time. The interesting thing is the definition for the Interagency Task Force on Family Reunification stretches from January the 20th, 2017 to January the 20th, 2021. The zero tolerance policy in the Trump administration was from April the 6th, 2018 to June the 20th of 2018. but the definition seems to be much wider. Now, we do not know how many individuals that this settlement agreement applies to. We also do not know how many individuals have been already given parole, as they have hinted from the interagency task force that they are allocating parole to individuals. So these are individuals that have legal status in the United States already, but now apparently are going to be given $450,000 a person. We've asked for details on this. We've been given nothing. So this simple amendment is this. In a bill that's dealing with human trafficking, border security is important. Not incentivizing individuals to illegally cross the border is also important. We know what coyotes do in Central America. We have no question about it. They take whatever piece of news they take from the American government, they deliver that to individuals that are vulnerable in Central America, and they say, if you go now, pay us now as a coyote, but if you go now to America, here's what you're going to get. There is no question that this will be the news in Central America, that if you go now, you're going to get $450,000 if you cross. Now, just as a reminder for our veterans that are killed in the line of duty, they are paid $100,000, is what the military calls the death gratuity. This is consideration, apparently, that they're going to pay $450,000 to individuals who had illegally crossed the border and who had been separated during that time period. The majority of American people, I don't even have to ask them if they think that people that had illegally crossed the border should get $450,000 and families of those who had died in the line of duty serving in our military should get $100,000. I don't even have to ask that question. I already know where they are. This is a straightforward proposal to say we need to set aside this interagency task force. We need to not agree to the settlement agreements that they're making behind closed doors and pulling it out of the judgment fund. And if they're going to pay individuals $450,000 after they illegally cross the border, that money should be taken from the salary of the individuals in the interagency task force, not from the American people. So that's this proposal.
Thank you, Senator Langford. I oppose Senator Langford's amendment basically because it would rescind the interagency task force on the reunification of families, which President Biden established to help reunify the thousands of children separated from their parents under the previous administration. In my mind, no child should be forced to experience the trauma of needless separation from their parents. The task force's work is vital to remedying this wrong. So far, the task force has identified nearly 4,000 children separated under the previous administration's zero-tolerance policy and has reunified 50 children with their parents. As a nation, I believe we have a moral obligation to right these prior wrongs, and I urge a no vote. The question before us is the Langford Amendment. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to get a roll call vote, please.
Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
No by proxy.
Senator Hassan. No. Senator Sinema. No. Senator Rosen. No. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. No. Senator Portman.
Aye.
Senator Johnson.
Aye.
Senator Paul.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford.
Aye.
Senator Romney.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Aye.
Senator Hawley.
Aye.
Senator Peters.
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 6. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 1, the nays are 1. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 7. The amendment is not agreed to.
The amendment is not adopted. Does any other senator have an amendment? If not, the question is on final passage of Senate 2991. If there's no further debate on the bill, all those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill is reported favorably. In order to expedite this, I'm going to go immediately to M. Blanc because we have a lot of bills there, and then we will continue to work on the other bills. But I know folks may want to run back and forth to vote. This would give us an opportunity to have those folks who want to debate some of the other bills at the time. But we want to right now proceed to the consideration of 14 legislative measures and 2 postal naming bills. I ask unanimous consent we consider the reporting of the following legislation en banc. S3035 Good AI Act as amended by a Peters substitute amendment. S2993 CISA Cyber Exercise Act as amended by a Rosen substitute amendment. S2540 CISA Technical Corrections and Improvements Act of 2021 is amended by a Portman Peters substitute amendment. S2322 CTPAT Pilot Program Act of 2021 is amended by a Carper substitute amendment. S2793 Smart Leasing Act is amended by a Peters substitute amendment. S2541 Shadow Wolves Enhancement Act is amended by a Cinema substitute amendment. S1941 MAPS Act of 2021 is amended by a Peters substitute amendment and a Peters Amendment 2. S2838 Access to Congressionally Mandated Reports Act. S419 Contract Act of 2021. S442 Bright Act of 2021. S2989 DHS Blue Campaign Enhancement Act is amended by a Peters substitute amendment. H.R. 4426 Homeland Security for Children Act. H.R. 2617 Performance Enhancement Reform Act. H.R. 4363 DHS Contract Reporting Act of 2021 is amended by a Peters Portman substitute amendment, and 2 postal naming bills, H.R. 3419, H.R. 2044. Hearing no objection, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. A majority of members having having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it, and the measure is reported favorably to the Senate. We will now move to consideration of S2491, Defense of the United States Infrastructure Act of 2021. Does any senator wish to speak on behalf?
Where's this? We'll just clarify that this is as amended by the Rosa substitute.
Okay, but this is.
I don't think he's offering it. So we're on the final passage of this one.
We'll proceed to consideration. Or anybody wish to speak on this bill? Hearing none, we will.
You need to say that this will consider final passage as adopted by the Rosa substitute.
What? We will proceed to consider. I ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Rosen-Hessen substitute as the underlying bill. Seeing no objection, the substitute is adopted.
Final passage.
Where's that?
2491.
If there are no further debate or amendments, the questions on final passage of S2491 is amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it. The bill is reported favorably. Senator Scott will be recorded as a no.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to be recorded as a no.
Senator Hawley will be recorded as a no.
Also a no here.
Senator Johnson will be recorded as a no. We will now proceed to consideration of S2274, and I ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Hessen substitute amendment as modified to the underlying bill. Seeing no objections, the substitute will be considered. Accepted. Does any member wish to offer an amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Langford.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick amendment dealing with the shortage of highly qualified candidates. Obviously, as we deal with the cybersecurity workforce issue, this is a very big issue for us. This gives the direct hiring authority if there is a severe shortage of highly qualified candidates and allows them. The current definition of this is just if there's candidates available. Obviously, there may be candidates available, but any of you that work in the IT area, like Senator Rosa and multiple others know, there's a difference between candidates and highly qualified candidates. When we're dealing with the IT issues here in the cybersecurity workforce, it's important they be given hiring authorities there based on do they have qualified candidates that are there. So this makes a small change there to say if there's a severe shortage of highly qualified candidates, then they're allowed to be able to do direct hiring authority on that. So it allows them to be able to engage faster, to be able to bring people in. So that's the amendment.
Well, I certainly appreciate Senator Langford's attention to the issue of recruiting and hiring quality candidates. However, I will not be voting in favor of this amendment that has broad and potentially unintended implications across federal agencies. And although I agree that there are circumstances in which agencies should have direct hiring option, this approach needs to be used carefully to protect the merit system protections, fairness in federal hiring process, and an apolitical professional civil service. The Office of Personnel Management already specifies that evidence related to the availability of, quote, quality candidates can lead to a determination that there is a shortage of candidates, enabling agencies to use direct hiring in this circumstance. Adding the term highly qualified to government-wide criteria imposes a more ambiguous phrase on the process and creates risk of paths leading for agencies to circumvent the merit system. Moreover, this amendment is not directly related to the underlying bill, which is specific to programs within the Department of Homeland Security. In addition, participants who successfully complete the apprenticeship program authorized by the bill would be appointed to cybersecurity positions in the accepted service, which already involves a significant amount of flexibility compared to the competitive service. I do not think this amendment is appropriate for Senator Hessen's cyber apprenticeship bill, and I would urge my colleagues to vote no.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator,
I'll be very brief given the situation with the votes, but I do strongly support this. We need more flexibility. And by the way, the VA already has this authority, we're told. So it's very simple. It simply says add highly qualified. And I think that's important to ensure that we have the cyber workforce we need.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Langford.
Just as a quick follow-up on that, not only does the VA already have this is a definition that's already working, and it's also the #1 request of the chief human capital officers across the federal government when they're trying to bring IT people in. They have this battlefield going on with OPM where OPM will say, we've given you candidates. And they'll say, I understand you've given me candidates. We need qualified candidates. And they want the flexibility to be able to go after highly qualified individuals in the IT area. And if there's any area I would think we would want to specialize right now, especially with what's going on right now, is to be able to give these agencies the ability to be able to go after highly qualified individuals and to use the flexibilities. We're competing against the private market here. We should be making sure that we're actually bringing good quality people in the process. This is something the chief human capital officers are all looking for.
Senator Hessen.
Mr. Chair, I would just say that the issue that Senator Langford has raised through this amendment is obviously an important issue. I would look forward to working with him directly on this. I do think the amendment as drafted could have significant unintended consequences, and I'll urge my colleagues to vote against it. Thank you.
If there's no further debate on the amendment, all those in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay? Nay? The majority of members present having voted in the negative, the nays have it. The amendment is not agreed to. If there's no further debate or
this will be a big issue for us, and we're going to have a big struggle in hiring folks. And not to be predictive, but this is already occurring.
I agree, Senator Langford. We're going to be working on this issue and look forward to working with you as well. If there's no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of 2274 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it. The bill is reported favorably. We will now proceed to consideration of S-138, and I ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Padilla substitute amendment as the underlying bill. Any objection? Hearing none, the Padilla substitute amendment is now the underlying bill. We'll now proceed to consideration of Rosa Padilla Amendment Number 1.
And so our amendment to this bill will ensure that the National Weather Service incident meteorologists who are responding to wildfires are also exempt from overtime pay caps. These individuals work closely with incident command teams in the field to interpret the weather to help predict fire severity and behavior and provide weather briefings to fire crews. As wildfires continue to worsen and wildfire season gets longer each year, it's more important now than ever to reduce any barriers for our firefighting workforce. This waiver only applies to incident meteorologists at the National Weather Service who accompany Forest Service and Interior Department wildland firefighter crews into the field to combat fires. There are currently 80 incident meteorologists known as IMETs, and this waiver is only for calendar year 2022, so cost should not be an issue. These meteorologists deserve to be included in the bill. They really work closely with these incident teams. As we know, wildfires do create their own weather on the ground, and this saves lives, not just of the firefighters, people and structures, animals all around there. It helps them fight the fire. It helps them also evacuate if they need to. It's very important that these meteorologists are with them. So I would urge a yes vote on my amendment, on our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further debate on the amendment? If not, none. The question is now on its adoption. All those in favor of the Rosa and Padilla amendment will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Majority of the members having voted in the affirmative, the amendment is agreed to. Is there any other further debate on the bill before us? If there's no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of S-138 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Majority of the members having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it. The bill is reported favorably. What's this here? Does any member wish to be recognized prior to us adjourning this business meeting?
Mr. Chairman, just to thank you again for letting us go through a process here where we were able to fully vet some of these issues in advance and had a good discussion today, and I think we've sent some good bills to the floor.
Well, thank you for your work, Ranking Member Portman, and just like briefly let members know, we did have S-3099, the Federal Secure Cloud Improvement and Jobs Act of 2021. We're holding that over. We're going to continue to work and make sure that we can get to a place that we can hopefully add this legislation to the NDA.
I appreciate that. I'd like to work through those issues and have that added.
That would be wonderful.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosen.
Mr. Chairman, I have about 30 seconds. So I want to thank you, Chairman Peters and Ranking Member Portman, for holding today's markup to advance the important measures to strengthen the overall cyber resilience of the country, including the CISA Cyber Exercise Act. Bipartisan legislation I introduced with Senator Sass and King. One of the most effective ways to prevent cyber attacks is to conduct regular cyber exercises that test and assess critical infrastructure readiness. Our legislation would strengthen CISA's ability to evaluate cyber readiness and enhance operational understanding of the cyber incident response system. Will help promote an integrated response between the private sector, state and local governments, federal agencies in testing critical infrastructure readiness against cyber attacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Ossoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to commend you and Senator Portman for your continued work together on the Access to Congressionally Mandated Reports Act. And I agree that centralizing access to those reports would be beneficial. My staff's been in conversation with yours and with the ranking members on a related idea to make it easier for federal agencies to suggest to relevant congressional committees which reporting requirements may be outdated and to offer Congress the opportunity to accept such recommendations to reduce redundant and unnecessary reporting. And, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with you and the ranking member to develop that idea, which may improve the efficiency and responsiveness of executive agency reporting to Congress.
Thank you, Senator Ossoff. We'll look forward to working with you as well. Does any other member wish to be recognized? Seeing no other member wishes to be recognized, this business meeting is now adjourned.